Hello, hello, and welcome to a special conversation on the One Head Power Hour. My name is Miracle Jones. I am your host for this evening. This week marks the commemoration of Juneteenth, which, of course, is how the United States celebrates the end to chattel slavery. But here in Pittsburgh, it also marks, unfortunately, the anniversary of the murder of Antwon Rose II, who was murdered by a police officer here in East Pittsburgh. And it also marks the first weekend of a national uprising, No Kings movement that has taken the nation by storm. But what does this movement mean to people who've been impacted by state violence, who have been impacted by protest? How are they navigating? And what do we need to know as we take the streets? To have a special conversation, please welcome to the One Head Power Hour the mother of Antwon Rose, who affectionately calls herself Antwon's mom, Michelle Kenney, and the mother of Amir Locke, Karen Wells. Welcome both of you to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming first to you, Miss Michelle, this weekend we saw over 6,000 people take to the street and protest. What did this weekend mean to you as you're coming up on this most precious anniversary for your family?
For me, it's hard not to compare the two. When I look at the protests, I see so many of the same people out there that were out there in the streets marching for Antwon. Some of these friends I knew beforehand, and some of them, they've become my friends. Um, and when I realized that they're basically fighting for the same rights, just in a different movement, it's kind of triggering because all we wanted for Antwon was for him to be treated fairly and not be abused. And now this No Kings movement is basically the same thing. These people want to be treated fairly and they don't want to be abused by the law. So I found myself really in a horrible space. I think I called Karen and we discussed this because it just set off some internal feelings when you're watching the government be part of the problem.
And coming to you, Miss Karen, Miss Michelle said she called you. What did this weekend mean to you?
I mean, to really sum it up, I will piggyback off what Michelle said, but I feel like it's an abuse of power. I mean, because you would not have people out here protesting if everybody was just treated fairly. And what we're seeing right now is just how this country as a whole treats people. I mean, it's like a trigger, like Michelle said. They were out there protesting for our boys because of the unfairness and systematic abuse of power. So that's what it made me feel. That's how I felt. That's how I feel when I see the protests across the news and across this country.
And you said it brought up, both of you said it brought up feelings, obviously, like here in Pittsburgh, there was people were taking the streets, they were shutting down bridges. What does that mean to you, as both of you, as mothers, when you see people taking the streets and fighting for your children and uplifting their names?
For me, it's comforting, but it's also triggering. Watching the protest, I basically set off some emotions that were going to come anyway. With it being so close to the day that Antwon was murdered, I'm really grateful for other people in the movement and for therapy because therapy isn't something that I did as soon as Antwon was killed. If anybody knows, I didn't go to therapy till I got diagnosed with cancer. And offered therapy for cancer patients, and I took it. But what it did was it allowed me to take trauma care. Because without it, I don't think that like I would be able to survive. I realize now that for 7 years I've been functioning in chaos, and I wouldn't recommend this to any other mother or families being part of this movement, or anybody that's out there now. Like, you got to talk to somebody.
And I know that is for some people, this is the first time they may have been hearing that you've been in a fight against cancer. And so you're fighting on multiple fronts, as I do. Again, want to thank you so much for spending tonight with us. We know it's so important. And Miss Karen, coming to you, you have talked about the fight. I see the shirt. It says, "This means war," right? You have been very much on the front lines and talking about like these systems, this injustice and this fairness, and calling out this power. What did this mean to you? Because not only did we unfortunately see people taking the streets, but we also unfortunately did, start the weekend with, the shootings in Minnesota. So what were some of the things that you have been processing and wrestling with, just as you're again dealing with your own trauma and your own grief?
To me, it's well, let's just be honest. This country is being unraveled. It is as if, pretend like the United States is an orange and you have to peel off the outside layer in order to get to the part where you want to peel it. And then when you peel, you keep peeling the orange, and you got to keep going through layers. That's what I feel like. We got to keep going through layers just to get fairness in this country. And it's not right, it's not fair, but I feel honored to see people out here still protesting peacefully and just doing what they need to do and standing up for their rights. Like, it makes me feel like sometimes it gets really quiet and you don't hear anything that's going on, but then when you see how everybody comes out across the United States in different cities, it makes me feel like there's still people out here that actually care. And there's still people out here that care about the situation that me and Michelle are in currently, like right now. So that's just what my take is on everything that's going on right now. And it makes, once again, it's a trigger for me to see protests. And then I'll also go back to when you talked about the fresh, the killings that just took place this weekend. Very, very sad, because you have people that actually stood with the families and wanted to make change with families in our situation, and they were murdered. And it just, I don't know. I just felt like Minnesota, here we go again. For me, because Amir was murdered in Minnesota, it's like, here we go again, Minnesota. What is wrong with Minnesota? There's something going on in Minnesota.
And you talk about, for people who don't know, we're referencing the shootings that happened with the politicians in Minnesota over the weekend. You said that, the people whose lives were taken were trying to impact change, trying to stand with the families who had lost loved ones to state violence and police violence. Since the passing and the murder of Amir, what are some of the changes that you have demanded and fought for, and what has been some of the changes that you have seen?
Well, we made sure that we demanded, because Amir was murdered because of a no-knock warrant. And let's just be clear, and I'm going to be very, very direct. Amir was a victim of a no-knock warrant where they were searching for property that had nothing to do with my son or anybody that lived inside of that apartment on 2222. You have people that were on that were on that list of 70 people that actually have been standing with the family, whether it's saying that Amir did nothing wrong, that's still standing with the family. You also had Governor Walsh. We fought hard to get no-knock warrants banned in the state of Minnesota. And in May of 2023, we accomplished that. And Governor Walsh signed the law into the bill. So, but once again, our work is still not done. It doesn't stop there. It does not. And then you, like I said, you have people like Representative Ilhan Omar, who is also supporting our family. She was on that list.
So, like, as you're processing that, I also want to come to you, Ms. Michelle, because it seemed like when I asked about the changes, you were ready. You wanted something. You had something that you wanted to say. So, I'll ask you the same question. Since the murder of Antwon, what has been some of the changes you have advocated for, and some of the changes that you have seen?
This is my truth moment. A whole bunch of politicians, too many elected officials in different positions, preachers, people. Everybody hopped on that bus with us and went to Harrisburg to drop that legislation off. Everybody used Antwon's name in their campaigns. Everybody got voted in. And as soon as they got voted in, they forgot. Not one state legislator went back to that legislation and pushed for that legislation to be passed after they moved on to their next position. So at this point, there's just so many people in the state that I choose not to work with. People wonder why I hop on a plane and go to other states and work with other people, or I join a movement where we're dealing with the Department of Justice rather than local people. I trusted them. I put my faith in them, and they failed me. They didn't only fail me, though. They failed this whole state. Because the only time I hear Antwon's name out of any one of them is when they see me in person. And that's my truth. We push for legislation on the use of force. We push for legislation on qualified immunity. And as soon as all of these qualified people got to the next position, they forgot what we were fighting for. So I'm still standing here because this fight can't be over for me. All that legislation got dropped. And being totally transparent, even the registry. Person moves up and the new people that take over forget about it. So it's basically sitting there and not being utilized. This state is disappointing, and it is what it is. But just like it was my son today, since we didn't follow through, only thing we're doing is enabling history to keep repeating itself, because 8 people died at the hands of law enforcement in this city since Antwon was killed. And that's something for every single person that hopped on that bus to think about. 8 people in this city have died since Antwon was killed. Maybe we should have followed through with that legislation.
And some of the things that you are bringing up is the fight. You know, you had the registry, which was supposed to alert hiring agencies if a police officer had issues at their previous agency or was terminated. Also, the use of force would change the way use of force was happening in Pennsylvania, and then lowering the threshold for qualified immunity to hold police officers individually accountable for their bad behavior, as well as the police departments that cover for them. And so, go ahead.
Unfortunately, the current Attorney General has not enacted legislation to mandate a reporting system on behalf of the police. Therefore, law enforcement agencies have the option to do so. Nobody is double checking to make sure that they do it. So and it's obviously not being done. A report just came out last week that very few agencies are reporting, and it's not being kept intact.
And that is Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday, who was elected and took over the other year. So as you're watching this, and I believe Ms. Karen was talking about the peaceful protests and seeing peaceful protests. At one time, when people were fighting for this legislation and fighting for Antwon, we had people walking out of universities, people walking out of classrooms, people doing sit-ins, and there was a group of kids at Woodland Hills here at the high school who were also trying to engage in protests. And at some point, you had encouraged them to stay in school and not walk out. What had encouraged you and motivated you to make that statement?
So I know a lot of people were really rubbed the wrong way by me telling the students of Woodland Hills to stay in school and not participate in the walkout. And please don't misunderstand. I appreciate all of those students who did walk out. But what people outside of Woodland Hills did not know was that Woodland Hills students come from 5 different neighborhoods, which means the police department that oversees the actual school, which is Churchill Police, has been proven by lawsuits, had abused Black children in Woodland Hills District. They have been sued, and there has been a judgment. So I'm not alleging something. I'm telling you they paid a settlement. North Braddock Police, which is another district that these kids would have had to walk home in, because this school was merged years ago. And so these kids come from these poor communities to walk into this wealthier community. One of the other neighborhoods that they would have had to walk through to go home was North Braddock. And unfortunately, North Braddock, along with all the other jurisdictions that they have to walk through, were out there when Antwon was murdered. These are the same police that were emblazed and emboldened by this work. These are the same police that were coming in riot gears. North Braddock Police are also the police that put a gun to Antwon's head. They put a gun to Antwon's head at 16 years old while he was on a traffic stop in the passenger seat with his sister. She was driving a car, went through a stop sign, and they put a gun to my 16-year-old's head. So sometimes when people get to talking about why'd he run, well, he had a gun at his head by North Braddock Police. Fact, I was there. I had to tell them to take the gun down. So did I, as Antwon's mother, want to carry the guilt and the pain of something happening to somebody else's son or daughter on my watch? Absolutely not. Did I want another mother in that district to have to go through what I was going through? Absolutely not. So, in my opinion, the best thing for me to do was ask them not to walk out. I stand by that to this day, because I was there to protect them, because Antwon was left unprotected.
And you talk about calling for peaceful protests, also coming to you, Ms. Karen. That is something that every time there is a protest movement, the question always says, why do families call for peace, right? Why do families call for calm in the wake of state violence? And as Ms. Michelle was talking about, wanting to make sure another parent isn't going through what she's going through, did you have to go through those same pressures when you were navigating people calling for justice for Amir?
So actually, his father had called for 22 days of a peaceful protest. I've never called for anything. And here's why. Until you're on the front lines and you're out here in the streets and you're boots on the ground, I am not going to tell anybody what to do and how to do it, because I didn't even know what to do and how to do it. So protests have been happening way before us, way before Amir, way before Antwon. The only thing that I can say is, it's easy to judge when you're sitting in your living room and talk about people and what they're doing and how they're doing it. But people don't understand that protests are infiltrated with a lot of people that are from a different state, and they come in and they're the ones that are causing all the issues. Not the local people that live in these cities, it's outside people. And then they broadcast that across the networks, and then they make it seem like, oh, people are just out here, they're burning up the stores, they're looting, they're doing this, they're doing that. But they're not telling you behind the scenes actually what's actually happening. And normally it's just like a small percentage of bad apples that come out and do this. So no, I didn't say anything. And I'm Amir Locke's mother, and I'm gonna be real, because to be honest, you know, my son went to Trayvon Martin's the first rally I ever took my boys to and their friends was at a Trayvon Martin rally. And Amir was 10 years old at that time. And so he turned to me and I could see how he was looking and how moved they were. But he was like, Mom, why are you guys always saying no justice, no peace? He said, but Mom, when you're not getting justice, it's like you're still getting peace. And so I had an aha moment. This is a real serious conversation I had with Amir. And then I see how he was when it happened to like George Floyd and, you know, somebody like that, when it was like nationwide. And he saw where it was when they say they meant no justice, no peace. And that's where that's how he saw the difference. And so I'm sorry, but I think, to be honest with you, I felt like in that moment, we're programmed to say some of the same stuff. And I am not a robot. I am not. And in the midst of my son being murdered while sleeping underneath a blanket on a couch, there is no way anybody was going to tell me to say, let's be peaceful. How can I tell somebody out there that's feeling a certain type of way, especially from what the system has done to our people, to be like, you know what? I just need you guys to be peaceful. No, it's up to the people that are boots on the ground to figure out if they want to be peaceful or not. I'm not representing hundreds and thousands of people and trying to tell somebody what to do. And I stand in my truth. And that's how Karen Wells was during the time that my son was murdered by the police. I ain't telling, I'm not saying nothing. I just remain neutral.
Wow, that you brought that up, because Miracle and I were talking, I think yesterday or the day before. And what I said to her was that it's so crazy how my viewpoint has changed. For the longest time, I believed that being level-headed and being informed and educated, I was grateful for the fact that it opened so many doors and got us in so many spaces, right? And I was blinded by that. And I went back and I was looking at a post I had made, and it was in reference to those in power at the time. And right underneath my post was a post from, I believe, Jay Nunley, saying, out of respect for me, they would remain peaceful after the verdict. But he didn't understand how you could remain peaceful when we weren't getting justice. And when I read it in 2020, all I could think about was the sheriff, black sheriff at that, who, when the trial was over, that demon child, Roosevelt, was allowed to leave the courtroom, and we were still standing there waiting to leave. And there was a black sheriff, and he came up to me and he said how well behaved that was. And he had never seen a black woman be so composed in court, especially under the circumstances. And I had been carrying that moment for 6 years. So when I went back and I saw Jay's post, all I could think about was, you know, I've always been good with a grill lighter and lighter fluid. And in the moment, I pushed that person to the side. But had I have known that 8 people were going to die after Antwon, I would have lit the match myself. And that's the truth. And Miracle and I, like, being judged on a national platform weighed heavy on me, because they always find the worst people to interview. It's like the news seeks out the black person with the hair rollers and no teeth and the fake aunties. And that had weighed on me, because they definitely did it when Antwon was murdered. So, I made sure that my family stayed on top of everything. I had my mother check everything from their clothes to their hair to their toes. And in reality, in hindsight, I wish I'd have brought the charcoal and the lighter fluid. And that's for real. Like, and it's not because it's close to Antwon's death date that I'm saying it. It's because the harsh reality of it is that it hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. Little things have changed, and we definitely have made some progress. But they haven't stopped killing us. It's just not the topic of discussion right now. And it won't be until it happens again. Unfortunately, though, people don't realize it's going to happen again. It may be in a town that we don't know about, and it may be not make national news, but it's happening right now today as we speak, and it's not going to stop.
And you're referencing the fact that there has been an increase in police violence, and there, with this current federal administration, they have also, in addition, as you mentioned earlier, to not having some of these parameters, have actually lifted and stopped some of these policing agreements. There were a lot of police precincts that were under investigation, not only for police violence, but for discriminating against people of color, for harassing and racially profiling Black people. And I think you're speaking to the reality of being like frustrated and disappointed as these political and electoral systems are failing. And I'll come to you first, Ms. Karen, and I'll come to you, Ms. Michelle. When you first heard the news that some of these police precincts were no longer going to be under DOJ oversight, how did you process that? And then how did you commit yourself to still fighting for justice and to make sure that other families aren't going to go through what you're going through?
Well, Amir represents Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that was part of the federal decree. And then, but see, Minnesota also has a second one. It's under a state decree as well. So they can try to get rid of the federal, but they can't get rid of the state, which is a good thing for Minnesota. So once again, here we are. It's a trigger. We're fighting. We're on the front lines. We're boots on the ground. We're doing everything that we're supposed to do to make sure that all this stuff happens, along with all the impacted families that have been boots on the ground in Minnesota, to make sure that that's what happened when the DOJ, they had to come down and give them that first decree. And so it's like, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going anywhere. So here's the thing. You could take away whatever you want to take away, but what you're not going to take away is the voice of Amir Locke's mother, Karen Wells. So when you silence my baby boy on 2222, this is what you're going to deal with. This is what you're going to deal with. So just because you erase something that's in black and white, you can't erase this. Amir Locke's voice. I'm his voice. His father is his voice. We are not going anywhere. So they can do whatever they want to do. We already know that this is what they want. They don't want protests. They don't want me and Michelle and any impacted family on shows talking to people. They want us to go away. But the only way we're going to go away is if they stop murdering our loved ones. And if they want us to be quiet, and obviously, let's just be real. If the decree didn't matter to them, why try to get rid of it? Why try to get rid of qualified immunity? Because they want to hide behind everything and continue to kill us. Just like she said, 8 people were murdered after Antwon. Well, let's just go with the ones that were murdered in Minnesota after Amir. There's Ricky Cobb II. There's Brandon Keys. There's Howard Johnson. There's Tekle Sundberg. Hey, if they were to do their job, then our babies would still be here. We wouldn't have to keep, and like Michelle said, they're going to continue to do what they want to do, regardless of what they put in play in black and white, until we do what we need to do, which is we need to continue to be boots on the ground. And I'll talk about what we should have did when they dismantled the Black Lives Matter street. But the funny part is, I'm gonna just talk about it now. You can get rid of the wording, but we all Black Lives Matter. How about that? So you can't get rid of this. You can't get rid of none of this. So we're not black and white. We're not on the street. We're not on a sign. We are actually in reality. And this is what you can't get rid of. So that's my stand on trying to get rid. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I was pissed off. I was very upset. I had people blowing up my phone because I don't do social media like that right now. Mentally, I'm still trying to get back on social media, but it's hard. So when you have people contacting you, and I'm not watching the news, and they're talking about what they're trying to do, even with the deal, all this type of stuff that we're fighting for, I was actually, my anxiety went up. I was so upset. I was like, we got to do something. Like we can't be quiet, because when we become quiet, it seems like they're still working and doing what they're doing behind closed doors. And we become so quiet, even when they pass laws and all this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden, here we go. We get slapped in the face. Like they crawl back from underneath the rock that they were never underneath. They were always sitting on top. They never crawl back under. They just sit there and they just wait for the next attack. That's how I feel.
And you talked about, and we can explore it in a little more in depth. You talked about the dismantling of Black Lives Matter Street. Obviously, across the country, there has been this push to remove Black Lives Matter murals, Black Lives Matter painting, under this anti-DEI, initiative. But can you talk about what that meant to you to get that notification and why it was just different in Minnesota?
Like I said, they want to erase everything. All the work that this is a full-time job. Michelle knows this. She's been doing this for over 6 years. I'm new. It's going on 3 years. But this is a lifetime commitment that we are a point of. We have no choice but to continue to do what we need to do for our sons, because their lives were stolen. Like I said, I think you thought you did something by dismantling and getting rid of Black Lives Matter in Washington on the street. But at the end of the day, look at the protests that are continuing across the United States, which means that we have a voice. We are sick and tired of the BS. We're not going anywhere. So we're going to continue to stay out in the streets and disrupt so-called people's normal lives, where they have normal lives. We're living abnormal lives for the rest of our days on this earth. And as far as I'm concerned, every time you dismantle something, whether it's a book or anything that represents our kids, we need to be boots on the ground and in their face. We should have been right there in Washington, D.C., when they disrespected our ancestors and our people. That's what we need to be doing. So all these protests, all that stuff should have been going on even then. I know there were some things that were going on, but no, it needs to continue, because once again, they're being disrespectful. They're being disrespectful to Amir. They're being disrespectful to Antwon. They're being disrespectful to all of us. And I would, like I said, I was pissed off. Like I said, my anxiety was at 100 when I heard about that. And then when I saw it on the news, I'm like, but one thing I'm gonna keep saying, and we all need to keep thinking this way. You can't get rid of this. We are Black Lives Matter 365 days a year. So we're not going nowhere. So even if I had to go out to Washington and bring my fold-up chair and sit on that same street that they erased the wording on, I will be Black Lives Matter in person, not on the street. So they can keep coming for us, but we're going to keep coming back. We're not going nowhere. That's
and
how I feel.
both of you have talked about some of the health situations, your anxiety, like your cancer diagnosis. As you're going through these fights, how are both of you taking the time out to take care of yourselves, to just make sure that you are okay physically and mentally? Go to you, Miss Michelle, because you have the first reaction. So I'll go to you first, and then Miss Karen, you after.
Honestly, I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to be okay. Therapy, God, all of the stuff that people tell you to utilize, whether they're passages, scriptures, sermons, nothing. And people can argue me up and down, because nothing will ever fill the void of my son being murdered at the hands of law enforcement. You can't explain that. I could attend 1,000 church services, and I could read 10 chapters in the Bible and 100 verses, and it still ain't gonna take away the pain that I feel knowing that my son was not murdered by another Black person on the street. He wasn't ran over by a car. He was murdered by somebody who's took an oath to protect and serve, even though they have fought that all the way to the Supreme Court, because they don't feel like that's their job. I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to be okay. People ask you, oh, how you're doing? And I say, oh, I'm good. The only people that hear the truth about what I'm really feeling or what I'm thinking are probably mothers in the movement like Karen. Like, the only person who knows, like, how much it hurts. Or when I'm spiraling out of control and I call Karen at 10, 11 o'clock at night. You know, people say to you, well, how can I support you? Keep saying Antwon's name, because, see, if we stay so far away from the truth. Like, somebody will be like, well, what can I do? Do you need anything? If I bust out and said, well, my phone bill ain't paid, can somebody call Boost right now and pay it because my phone is about to be turned off? You know what happens? People turn around and say, I told you this was about the money for them. That's all the families care about is the money. So I don't say stuff like that, even though that might be my truth. Like, I'm not going to tell you that my phone is about to be shut off tomorrow, because there'll be 100 messages in my inbox from these random hateful, spiteful people telling me that my son deserved to die and be shot down like a dog, and all I cared about was the money. Because, see, that's what we get. At least that's what I got. When meanwhile, I'm going to tell you, oh, I'm good. It's fine. I'm doing okay. It's June, and I am not okay. I'm going to be okay, but I'm not okay. I have come to hate this month and everything about it. And the closer it gets to June, the more my anxiety kicks in. Medicine, all that other stuff, it don't stop this from happening. And It's not, it's kind of like a mix of anger, but it's more of hurt. I miss my son. Like, I really miss my son. And there's no way for people to understand that unless they've been through it. This is a different kind of pain. And it's not just the pain, it's the fact that you gotta fight. Like, we don't get to grieve and go hide in the corner and lay on the couch and be like, I lost my kid. We don't get to do that. You know, Karen and I are involved in the group Families United, and we finally got to meet with law enforcement. Like, we finally got there. But not just law enforcement. We made it in front of the Department of Justice. Only for 47 to come in and say, no, we ain't doing that no more. That was such a hurt piece. Like, see, I never, like, back in 2020, I set the world ablaze by saying that 45, now 47, was not my president. I stand behind that still to this day. And I never expected him to come in to be anything less than what he has been. But to remove people from the Department of Justice, replace them, or put limits on what they can and cannot do when it comes to these families was hurtful, because I felt like, and Karen will tell you, I told them, like, I waited to hear from them. And when I finally got in that door, I felt like we were going to make some changes and that we had accomplished something. And then along comes this man who don't care nothing about black folks, brown folks, or nothing else. And he said, we're going to go in a different direction. And everything that we have been fighting for, he is fighting against. I don't think people understand that using law enforcement as a weapon is actually a crime. And that's exactly what this administration is doing right now. If you were an officer and you used your position in authority over to take control of someone, that's a fireable offense. And often it's criminal. But when the highest law enforcement officer in the land telling you that it's okay, that's a problem. And it's not just a problem for black and brown people, as we see. It's becoming a problem for everybody. But, you know, it's just like this fight that we're in when it comes to our sons. Sometimes people don't feel it until it hits home. And that's the way I feel right now. I feel like all of those people who voted for this 47 dude, all of those people who voted for him, they thought it couldn't happen to them. Like when I sat home on my couch and I never imagined that it would be my son. See, I watch time and time again because I'm a CNN news junkie. Like every TV in my house had the news on it 24/7, and it drove Antwon absolutely insane. Like, he used to walk downstairs and be like, Mom, you're watching the news again. But the reality of it is I never thought it would be me. And now to see those people who voted for him saying they never thought it would be him, well, welcome to my world. Because it was okay when it was me. Now they're up in arms because it's them. It's just their turn. And I don't feel bad. Because those are the same people that were sending me those hateful messages.
Mm. That's a lot, to go through, to grieve publicly and to try to navigate such intense pressure. And so to you, Miss Karen, I'll ask you the same thing. Like, how are you taking care of yourself in this moment when you, as Miss Michelle was saying, you're so close to seeing all the work you've been fighting for come to fruition, having the administration take it away, but also dealing with the constant racism and anti-Blackness. You said you took a social media break. So maybe not as intense of the social media engagement, but how are you in this moment taking care of yourself?
Well, first, I want to say when I found out that Michelle was dealing with cancer, I was very sad, and I knew she was going to fight and make it through. I was on the phone with her. If I didn't talk to her, I'm sending her text messages and just letting her know I'm thinking about you. She's in my prayers, because I'm thinking, Lord knows, I'm not trying to be on this fight, boots on the ground, without Michelle. We have became very close from the day that we met. And so that still has an effect on you. So I'm saddened by hearing this, but I'm also worried about her and making sure I don't get a negative phone call. Then in January of this year, Amir's father, Andre Locke Sr., had a stroke on January 11th. So to get that phone call, it's affecting me as well. That's his father. And so I had to make sure that I stay grounded. I'm a very, I love my Father God, the King in heaven, who covers me. That's what gets me through. Like Michelle said, well, I'm never going to heal from this. There's no book, there is no cure, there is no drug that they can give us to deal with grief induced with trauma. And of course, by the way that Amir was taken, like stolen, like I would have never imagined that my baby would be murdered by a police officer, and in his where he came from, where he was born and raised in Minnesota. So we have our moments. Like right now, I'm in fight mode, and this is not easy, for me to have to be doing this. And then when you hear that somebody comes into the office and either pauses the work that we've been doing, or says, no, we don't want to do that, or you want to replace people that say yay all the time and not nay, you know what? I'm not surprised. I wasn't shocked. But because I'm the daughter of the King, I don't let it worry me. I get frustrated and pissed, but I don't let it, I don't let it filter in to my body, because I think that's what they want. That's what they want from us. And I'm not going to allow it. I've learned to do self-care, everything, because I know that stress causes us as parents in this movement to become sick, or we end up dying while fighting for our loved ones. And I know for a fact that I can't let that happen. So that's why I say, no matter what, you have to make sure that you are there for each other. Because like I said, I don't care what time it is. Michelle calls me at midnight. It's 1 a.m. where she lives at. I'm picking up that phone. I don't care if we go without talking for weeks or a few months. That's one of my girls. True. We're true to each other. I'm there because I'm going to make sure, because like I tell her, Antwon and Amir got both of us. And I know I can hear Amir and Antwon saying, hey, when she first got diagnosed, I told her, I said, oh, our babies is on it. They got you. They got me. Amir and Antwon are together. They met. They fighting along with us. And I guarantee you, they was like, hey, Amir, my mom down there stressed out. We got to come through. And that's when he summons for me. Go, there's Karen. And I'm right there. So we just have to make sure that sometimes I don't read people's texts. I wait for days, especially when you hear negative stuff that's going on, especially with the movement for us, when it comes to the higher power or whatever that's going on, the man that's leading this country. I don't want it. I don't want the negativity, because I'm already dealing with a lot. And sometimes it can make us, I don't want to veer off the cliff. I'm already standing on the edge as it is because of what happened to my baby. So I don't need the negativity coming back at me because I may just actually slip because of what I just heard that's negative, and I may actually fall on accident. And so that's what I deal with, and that's how I deal with it. Yeah, I'm in a support group as well and stuff like that. But you know what? It doesn't matter. We will never be healed. When we take our last breath, we will not be healed. We will not be healed until we cross over and we see our loved ones that was murdered, disrespected by people that swore to take an oath. But yeah, you can kick the couch twice and still shoot my son multiple times in 9 seconds and not even ask him who he is. But you knew there was a body up underneath the couch. Sleeping on the couch underneath the blanket, because you would have never kicked the couch if you couldn't see a body. So that goes to show you how they feel about our babies. They don't care. They don't care. But baby, I'm telling you right now, our kids got us. They protecting us, and we are going to protect each other. So when she can't say Antwon's name, Karen Wells is saying Antwon's name. If I can't say Amir Locke's name, Michelle going to say. That's what that hashtag J4A is for. Justice for Antwon, justice for Amir. That's what she says. Okay. And that's how we're going to do this.
And you talk about being in this fight. You're in a lot of organizations. Looking forward, what are some of the things that you are demanding and that you are fighting for? And how can people come along and amplify these demands today?
I think qualified immunity is the first thing that needs to go. I don't, this is my opinion. I don't think anything is going to change until it actually impacts the individuals doing the killing. Whether there is a lawsuit, a judgment, reforms, it never directly impacts that particular officer. The only way it impacts them is if they are arrested, prosecuted, but actually found guilty. Other than that, nothing comes out of their pocket. Nothing in their life changes. If you remove qualified immunity and you make it so that each individual law enforcement officer is responsible personally for their actions, I believe they will consider twice on killings before they lose their house, their car, their boat, their kids' college tuition. Like it those are the only things that matter to them. Am I assuming? Nope. Work with them way too long to not know. What matters to them is their possessions, because most of them took the job to be in a position of authority anyway. So I think that the only thing and the biggest thing and the first thing that should be on everybody's list is removal of qualified immunity from every law enforcement entity that there is, because there is no other job that you could have and you be protected by your employer in that way.
And you, Miss Karen, a demand or a fight? You're done.
Number one on our list is end qualified immunity. Get rid of it and start charging these reckless and racist officers and get them off the streets, get them out of our communities. And once we do that, they're gonna still kill our loved ones. But they being so reckless now, they killing everybody. They killing the people that even look like them because they're out of control. And then you also get this number 47 negative, that's telling them that it's okay, but it's not. And once again, remember, we worship a higher power. Man didn't create the heavens and earth. He helped build the earth. But just remember, your days are numbered and all the evil is going to come to an end eventually. So Once again, dismantle all that, hold these officers accountable. I mean, if I'm on a job and I kill somebody or I do something recklessly, I'm going to be held accountable for it. So why should they be? Can I reiterate? They're actually public servants. They're supposed to serve the public, which is meaning that they should have been serving my son. Public servants on that day, instead of assassinating my baby, executing him in less than 9 seconds. They are to serve the public. It is an occupation. People need to understand and stop putting officers on a pedestal. Because when we were growing up, they asked every child in kindergarten, what would you like to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a police officer. It's an occupation. You are not above the law. Why do you have qualified immunity? Something that isn't even real. It's made up for you to hide behind the fact that y'all know who y'all actually are. And let's be real. The majority, let's talk about where it originated from. Slave patrol. Hello. Police officers were created during slavery. Slave patrol. Modern day history. Modern day times. The only thing that they did was they got rid of the hoods and their robes. And now they wear the colors black, blue, and brown. And now they carry a badge and a gun. That is the only difference. So when we're calling 911, and I'm not telling you not to call them, you do what you want to do. You're calling the modern day Klan. And I stand on it. And that's how I know. So people need to read their books and go back and go through history. And actually, maybe they should go check out Sound of the Police, which is on Hulu. And it talks about how they were created during slavery and how it goes into modern day in 2222 when they murdered and executed Amir in 9 seconds. So everybody, you need to sit down with your children and let them see Sound of the Police and get educated about, I'm sorry, but when you dial in 911, and I don't care who hears this, and if you, you should, I don't care what you do. You can dial 911, but most of the time when you dial 911, even if it's a loved one having a mental breakdown or whatever, what happens to them? What happens? And you tell them that they're having a mental break. They end up dead when you know on the 911 call, you told them, hey, my loved one or my friend is having a mental breakdown. I need you. And you're calling not to get them murdered. But 9 times out of 10, when it comes to our people, that's what happens. So it's all about, once again, education. We need to educate ourselves as well. They can remove whatever they want to remove, but you can't take stuff off of YouTube. You can't take stuff off of Google. You can't remove the archives, and you can't remove us, especially when a lot of us have been living here on this earth for over 50 years or whatever. We know we can still tell our grandkids and everybody else what's going on. It's called pass down the information, pass down the wisdom. And that's what we got to let them know, that band together, they can't stop us. We're unstoppable. And like I said, I'm not going nowhere, because if you want me to go back to 2122, bring back my son, Amir Locke. Bring back my son. And I'll go back to being the Karen Wells that I was on 2122. But since you didn't, now you got to deal with, it's almost like we are Freddy Krueger. We're going to be your worst nightmare. No matter what you try to do, you can erase Black history all you want to in black and white. But like I'm going to say it again, you won't erase me. And guess what? Amir Locke is Black history. You made it that way. No one knew who Amir was until you executed him. No one knew who Antwon Rose was until you executed him. So dismantle, erase, just like they want to erase us. Erase qualified immunity. And like she said, start charging these officers and let them go have their due process in court. If you feel like you killed our loved ones because you felt threatened or you feared for your life, which is what they say, that's why they hide behind qualified immunity, then go up in front of your peers and let's see if they vote yay or nay. And I'll respect you if you go through the process, but we don't need nobody acting like the judge and the jury when it comes to our loved ones. And we need to make sure that, and officers out there, you need to understand, you're not above the law. You are a public servant to serve the public. We pay taxes. My son was paying taxes. He worked. He was a door dasher. Her son was probably working. We work. We pay taxes. We pay your taxes. We pay your salary. You're serving us. Act like it. Be respectful. And then we'll respect you.
And as we close, I want to give both of you just the opportunity just to talk a little bit about your sons, who they were, a favorite memory that you feel comfortable sharing with the public. Because I know your memories, I've talked to Miss Michelle a lot. Those memories are mine. Those are my stories. But is there anything that either one of you want to share with the public about your boys before we close the conversation?
What I want to say is our sons didn't deserve to die. They didn't get a chance to decide if they wanted to be the face of the movement. Nobody asked them that. Antwon never wanted to be famous. That wasn't his thing. He didn't even like taking photographs. So for him to become the face of the movement, it's like it's everything that he didn't want, but he would have wanted in order to make the world a better place. You know, I miss my son. My daughter misses her brother. My grandkids miss their uncle. Antwon was loved and gave love before the world came to love him. But most importantly, like, I just need people to understand that I'm hurting right now. And sometimes I fall down. But this is a fight that will never end. I'm going to pass this down to my grandkids. Like, we are here. We're not going nowhere. And the love that we have for our children can outlast any legislation, any politician, any law enforcement agency. Like, we going to be here when they ain't here. Because what we have is loyalty to one another. And that's something that ain't none of those people in power ever proven to have. So, like, seriously, like, I'm hurting. But I'm always going to be here.
We're always going to be with you too.
Thank you.
Miss Karen?
Amir was, Amir was a bright light. I mean, had a beautiful smile, and that was my baby boy. I have 2 children. He will forever be 22. And Amir didn't deserve what they did to him. And to watch and see how they disrespected my baby enrages me. Because Amir was so loving and so kind and wise. And Amir was the type of person where when he was younger, if you didn't want to play with the certain person, that person or whatever, Amir was that one that would walk over and be like, I'll play with you. This goes for even his younger cousins. And so Amir wanted to be a father. Amir started his own LLC called Saving the Youth. That goes to show you where Amir's mind frame was. He wanted to save the youth. Amir was a loving, just brother, uncle to his niece, nephew. I mean, they have really tore up an entire family, upon generations. And I miss him. I miss my son every second, not every day. It's every second I think about Amir and how unfair it was for him to be taken the way that he was. And that's something that hurts me the most is he didn't deserve what happened to him. He didn't deserve it. But I'm gonna make sure that because they took his life so recklessly, that no matter what, he's still gonna be able to be a part of history and save lives. And I'm forever torn. I miss my baby. He was wise. He liked the joke. He was the one that would tell me, Mom, you need to get your Instagram up. Like, I wasn't doing Instagram back then. Mom, you need to follow this person. You need to do this. I learned actually a lot of things from my 22-year-old baby, even before he was 22. I learned you're never too old to learn. We teach our children, but as they get older, they start teaching us. And that's something that I miss. The phone calls, him being here around, just joking and just loving on me and telling me I love you. And he's very protective over me. That's something that I miss. I feel like I don't have that for my baby to be so protective over me. And that tears me up because I don't have it. I'm lost. I'm forever. My heart has a hole in it. They can't repair because they stole my baby. And that's just Amir. I mean, very, very protective. I'm just going to share. And then the thing that I think about the most with Amir is when I got COVID and he wasn't at the home at that time. And I said, I got COVID. And he's like, he was checking, Mom, how do you feel? Texting me, calling me. How do you feel? Are you okay? And then he texted me. I still have it. I saved it. He said, Mom, don't you get that shot? And I was like, okay. And he was like, no, don't get the shot. And so it's stuff like that shows that he cared about me and that he loved me so much. And I that's what I miss. I miss the late conversations. He was the conversationist. I mean, Amir, we would talk, even his older brother, they come and lay at the edge of my bed and sit there. We would talk until like 3 a.m. for hours. All three of us just talking about different things in life and just what they wanted to do. And they would fall asleep at the edge of my bed. And when I wake up, they were right there. And that's what I miss. I miss my protector. He was one of my protectors, and I miss him protecting me in the flesh. I do. And he wanted to change the world and his music and everything. And that's what I miss about him here. His smile, definitely, his laugh. I miss it.
I do want to thank both of you for taking time out on your Tuesday evening to sit with us for this conversation, to uplift, the stories of your sons, as well as talk about your experiences and to give people calls to action. I know this is a pain that neither one of you ever wanted to experience in your life. And so to share this with us, I am beyond honored that you would sit down. I know that neither one of you like to have these conversations. And Miss Michelle she's like, I feel like I need to say something, watching these protests. She was like, as mothers, we're watching these protests and we want to say something because we want to make sure people are going to be okay. And so I do thank you both so much for sitting down. I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Know that you are loved, know that you are supported, know that you never have to feel bad about asking for help, because there's always going to be a community of people that love, support you, and have your back, and will fight for you, and will go to the wall for you. So thank you both so much, Miss Michelle and Miss Karen.
Thank you for having us.
And that
Love
has
you,
been
Michelle.
Edition of the Power Hour for our special conversation. If you are able to, we'll put the links for the organizations in the chat for you to follow up. Please donate, please support, please be in community, and please do not stop fighting against the state violence. We need qualified immunity, as you heard both of the mothers say, but please still show up. please still keep fighting, because as Ms. Karen said, a better world is possible. And we are the ones, as June Jordan said, that we have been waiting for to create this world for us. And with that, have a great night. I'm your host, Miracle Jones.